Completing a 40-kilometer journey in 4 weeks may sound illogical and laughable for any vehicle, but not for this German Cold War submarine. This is the case of this impressive transport carried out in the summer of 2024, where a 350-ton U-17 submarine starred in this unusual journey, not through ocean depths, but along roads, cities, and narrow paths in southern Germany. Tired of aquatic life after serving the German Navy from 1973 to 2010, this submarine spent its retirement days in museums and exhibitions, remaining at the Technik Museum Speyer. However, everything changed when its relocation was set in motion, planned literally for years, in order to be exhibited at the neighboring Technik Museum Sinsheim, about 40 kilometers away. To understand the scale of this logistics operation, it's necessary to consider that the submarine itself is approximately 50 meters long and 9 meters tall. This is equivalent to the height of about 4 standard one-story houses and the length of roughly 12 sedans lined up. But it doesn't end there, because in order to move such a massive load, the use of special trucks and equipment was required, bringing the total weight of the convoy to over 500 tons. For this reason, the German logistics company Kübler had to plan this enormous expedition for more than 2 years, since reaching the submarine's new destination meant traveling through extremely narrow streets, with overhead cables and traffic signs obstructing the route. The journey also included crossing a river, though not under its own power, but via a special pontoon, which would have been epic otherwise. This incredible journey began on land. After some initial preparation work, the submarine was mounted onto a configuration of special semi-trailers known as the Steuerle Intercombi. Known for their strength and versatility, this combination featured 240 wheels distributed over 30 axles, with 2 sets of 4 tires each. The choice to use this particular 3-meter-wide platform was based on its reliability and adaptability for loads with a high center of gravity, such as this very submarine. In addition to this semi-trailer combination, which had fully steerable axles, a group of 4 trucks was also used. Specifically, 1 MAN and 3 Mercedes-Benz units were required, all equipped with V8 engines and configured as 8x4 and 6x4. These trucks were selected to operate jointly, with the pair pulling and the other pair pushing during the most complex and challenging sections of the route. At 8:20 a.m. on June 30th, the submarine set off toward the banks of the Rhine River. The reason for this is that logistically, carrying out the transport entirely by land was too complex. That's why they took advantage of the hydrography provided by this and other nearby rivers to get as close as possible to an optimal starting point for the land route. However, it wasn't until July 2nd that the loading maneuvers onto the pontoon were finally completed. This vessel, in charge of the first stage of the journey, was 66 meters long and 12 meters wide. An important aspect of this first stage was securing the submarine. Since it would not submerge for the journey, it had to be fastened down with tie-downs, tightened in an orderly and secure manner, because they would serve as the anchoring points for a rotating electric system designed to tilt the entire submarine structure up to 76 degrees in order to reduce the height to pass under things like bridges or power lines. Another highlight occurred on July 6th, when the transport arrived in the city of Heidelberg, where it parked along the banks of the Neckar River to give a small demonstration for the locals, offering unforgettable views as it posed in front of the city's castle ruins and right next to a historic old bridge. Later, on July 8th, the journey continued along the 35-kilometer waterway toward the town of Eberbach, from where the final stretch of the river journey would begin, leading to its first major destination, the city of Sinsheim. It wasn't until July 13th that the 350-ton Colossus touched the ground again, after an arduous repositioning operation to mount it once more onto the special low-bed semi-trailer. By July 15th, the enormous convoy resumed its journey through the surrounding villages where it had previously disembarked, such as Siegelsbach. From then on, the submarine advanced day by day toward its destination, drawing the attention of spectators in every town it passed through, as if it were some kind of astonishing attraction. Another very notable moment came on July 20th and 21st, when the convoy turned the A6 Autobahn into a ghost road. The reason was that the highway was completely, albeit temporarily, closed to allow the convoy to travel in the opposite direction, avoiding any risk of accidents with civilian vehicles. Amazingly, due to the size of the convoy, this portion of the route was covered at a speed of just 15 kilometers per hour, and the entire time it was under the supervision of operators walking along the perimeter. Likewise, another major challenge faced by the convoy was crossing the narrow streets of German towns, where it was often necessary to measure height clearance to avoid damaging electrical and communication cables. But more importantly, the convoy had to overcome countless roundabouts and intersections with angles of up to 90 degrees, requiring maximum coordination and precision from the trailer operators, as well as the truck drivers. The complexity of this transport reached such a degree that, in the city of Hillsbach, the submarine had to navigate between buildings with millimeter-level accuracy, passing through tight spots with just a few centimeters of clearance, including around significant structures like the local church and residential buildings. One thing worth mentioning is that Kubler's logistics operators were pleasantly surprised by the warm receptions they received throughout the journey. In many towns, despite not being scheduled stops, they were welcomed with music, banners, and cheers, which gave them the encouragement to carry on with the operation, even as it became increasingly exhausting over time. Another touching detail of this operation was that former crew members and commanders who had served aboard the submarine accompanied the convoy for nearly the entire journey, offering demonstrations and engaging talks with excited spectators. Approaching what would be the final stretch, on July 26th, the convoy faced one of its greatest challenges yet. Winding roads combined with the terrain's natural geography and the city's layout significantly complicated the transport. First, many traffic signs had to be removed to allow passage through urban areas. In addition, ultra-precise maneuvers were required as roundabouts and narrow streets became increasingly common on the approach to the final destination. However, what truly posed the biggest challenge was the need to rectify steep road sections using steel plates, thanks to the meticulous planning and preparation of the transport team. At that point, the last thing this operation needed was for it to rain, which is exactly what happened on the night of July 27th, just before reaching the destination. Finally, on July 28th, the convoy covered the last few meters of its journey, delivering the U-17 to its final destination. Greeted with cheers and excitement, thousands of spectators watched as the 30-axle trailer parked right next to what would become the new home of the massive German submarine. This extraordinary transport was made possible only thanks to the collaboration and coordination between logistics and equipment companies Kubler and T. Scheuerle, as well as the staff of the Technik museums in both Sinsheim and Speyer, whose personnel remained attentive throughout to ensure the safe completion of the operation. Although it's already been 10 months since this submarine was installed at the Technik Museum in Sinsheim, it will finally open its hatches to the public on May 24, 2025. This delay was due to the necessary adaptations made to transform the submarine into an exhibition center. The goal is to give visitors a first-hand experience of what it's like to walk through the narrow corridors of a naval vessel like this. While the main attraction is exploring and discovering this piece of German naval history, the incredible story of how a 350-ton colossus left the sea to travel across highways will always remain truly impressive.